Hey, what's up, everybody? It's DJ Fanatic Beats, content contributor for LiveOffBeats.com. If you'd like to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram at DJ Fanatic Beats or Sounds for Producers on Instagram. So let me break down this video. This video is actually a breakdown of a beat that I did. Actually, it's my most popular beat at the moment, and actually probably one of the best selling beats at the moment. So I wanted to break down the different things that I did and also hopefully help you learn different things as far as melody and chords and different elements that worked well in this beat and why it's actually popular. Just a little note, when people show a lot of attention to something, it means you did something right, that's attracting people or what makes them interested in it. So you kind of want to look deeper and find out what exactly that you did that was, so good, and kind of repeat it. So that way, you can work and focus on that thing that's working so well. And that way you're not just making all a bunch of different type of beats or whatever. It depends what your end goal is. If your end goal is to make money, you got to really hone in on what your audience likes. So let me show you what I did. First, I started with just some chords here. And I'm going to show you right here. Notice this is pattern 1 and this is pattern 3. I actually just did a little change up on pattern 3. Let's zoom in. This is pattern 1 here. And these are all these are actually a little more advanced. This first chord is a 9th chord. Didn't think I did that actually. This is a 7th chord, and you notice as I hover over it, I actually use the stamp tool. To do that, you just click on this little icon here and pick what type of chord that you want, and you can just place it anywhere in the piano window, piano roll, excuse me, and kind of just create what you want. And also what's cool about the stamp tool, you can actually use them as a reference as well and kind of create your own chords, because you place this here, and then if you just move around one note or whatever, you kind of see what works in that sequence. So here's the pattern 1, and in pattern 3 I changed up the end, and I believe I changed, yeah. So only thing I changed was this last chord and the second pattern. Usually you don't want the same pattern playing over and over. You want some type of variation throughout your beat, so that way your listener remains interested in the music. So I think that was a key thing that I did in this beat that people like a lot. If you notice, as I zoom out, I just repeated that throughout the whole song. It goes pattern 1, pattern 3, pattern 1, pattern 3, and that's just on the chords. And I believe after the chorus here, I actually changed the pattern right here, pattern 4. So it's just probably one small variation, or I just made it unique for no reason, which is rare. I'm sorry, pattern 1, pattern 3, pattern 2, pattern 4. So during the verse, I kind of switched it up a little bit, and I'll get to that. So next I added some, I think it's a lead. So let's hear what we did. Again, I changed it up on the second pattern, so that way it's not the same as pattern 5 over and over and over. So I have variation in the first chords and also in that lead that I did. So you can hear a lot of movement already. It's a really cool melodies going on. The chords sound great with those melodies, and over time you just get better and better at making melodies. And also, the more music you listen to, your brain is like subconsciously bringing that information in, and you just naturally let music out. I think my DJ background definitely helped me a lot with just hearing hits after hits after hits, and it naturally comes out of me sometimes. And also, being a musician and stuff like that. But The point of the video is not giving you a history of my musical background. It's just hopefully give you some guidance on production. So let's what I want to do is go to options, audio. I notice I'm getting some pops because I have so much processing going on, and hopefully let's see what that, and it's still getting pops. So I think usually you go left, you shorten the buffer length, and it should sound better. That sounds worse. I always get confused with this. Let's move it to the right. Okay, that's a little better. My bad, because I'm shooting video and I'm going through all this processing. And also have all the mastering plugins still running in the background on this project. So the third thing that I have is let's see, let's solo that. Like a really strong part of the beat was that piano part. It's like a layered piano with strings, and it really comes out in the beat. So check it out. And that's one thing I definitely recommend, is like with certain instruments, if you double up on octaves, notice they're the same looking patterns. They're just 3 octaves of the same notes. So when you do that, you get like a more dramatic feel, and it sounds fuller, especially with piano. And notice I have a bottom note down here, the D sharp. So that kind of just adds into all this drama of what's going on up top. So, doubling up on different octaves with instruments definitely makes your beats sound fuller. For some instruments, not every one of them, because if something really complex or loud, sometimes it doesn't sound right. But trust your ear. That's your best tool. Listening to how you feel about it. So the next thing I added, let's hear all 3 of those together. So that sounds pretty cool, and I'm gonna unsolo those. And I threw in a loop. It's like a harp loop. And don't hate on loops, because you can always just change loops to make them totally different, or just add to what you already created. And I think I started with just these chords, and I ran into this loop and just kind of pitched it where it works with the beat. So and also I did an automation volume increase of that loop into the chorus. So, and this sound here, I'm not sure what that is. Let me bring that back, see what that is. Yeah. So I kept with like a sub bass, like a synth bass, something pretty simple with this beat. You don't always need 808s. I know they're fun. I know they're loud. Trust me, I love loud instruments, loud stuff. And the sub, I mean, it's typical. It's fun to manipulate and make it bend or just do different things. But you don't always have to have a sub, like an 808, what I mean, in every beat. Certain beats, like if you just do your research, there's some beats that have some really cool synth subs. And also like, they call it like a subharmonic sub. Basically just the sub that you can hear feel without hearing, and you can actually layer those too. So this is actually, I'm curious what this sub was. Let's see, what's that, pattern 16? And we can just go, I can show you what I used. Pattern 16, not sure what that was. So it looked like I used an 808, a subharmonic 808 in that particular beat. So I kind of took an 808 and made it sound like a synth sub. So you can do that as well. If you just keep the sound, like for instance, let me show you. It's already on. So if you look at the wavelength, it's a long sustained note. And what you can do is lower all these parameters and put your hold all the way up. And what that does, the note is sustained based on the length of these notes. So you get the idea. So, and I already played it, but I wanted to play the intro. It's a short 8-bar intro. And what I got to say about intros, you know, people want to get right into the beat now, especially artists. So you don't want these long, super long 25-bar intros. I know it's tempting and you feel dramatic and you have an emotional connection to your beat, but if you're thinking about it as far as another person hearing it, you know, and then you only have like 4-bar verses, you got to really think about song structure. It's very important. So 8 bars is cool. That's a typical. I heard beats with 4 bars. It depends on the structure and what type of beat it is. So a best reference is to listen to like the top songs, like Billboard stuff, you know, stuff on top Spotify stuff, all that's top stuff. And you can research and like just count the bars in your head and figure out, okay, that was an intro or that's a chorus. That's a gem right there that, you know, is highly useful when you're trying to structure your beats. So that way, you know, you're kind of using the same structure, but there's sometimes when you can just do your own thing and just feel the beat out. And there's times, you know, where artists actually don't even rap where the verse is. They'll just make up whatever, you know, spot they want, and it actually works out. So at least having a short, I think 8 bar is good. I had 16 bar. Usually like that's with like R&B and stuff, but it's a little different for every genre. So here's the intro. And right before the beat comes in, I have the drums. I add the drums. I got a cymbal. I got a lot going on. So I'm going to play the chorus. So with the chorus, that's pretty much everything that you're going to have in a beat until, you know, sometimes you want to introduce something different. But usually the chorus is the main part of the beat, basically having all the instruments that you're going to use in a beat in that spot. And for the verse, it's pretty easy. You can just take away certain things to break the beat down. Usually that'll just give it some space for the artist's vocals. It's not all about the producer. I know sometimes I feel that way, but it's a kind of like not a duet, but it's a what word am I looking for? It's a compromise, because you know somebody's rapping on your beat. That their voice is an instrument, so they're adding that instrument in this space. Even visually, you see I have space here, so you got to think sonically. You know, you need to leave space, not have so many instruments going on, and also on a creative level too. You know, you don't want to hinder the artist. I used to have this problem all the time. I would make these extravagant beats with like 20 different instruments just going crazy with it. And, you know, I would let artists hear my stuff. I let other producers hear my stuff. Yo, that's crazy, man. That's dope. But some artists, like, they can't even hear themselves on it because it's so complete just musically. And I still have that problem to this day sometimes. So I make sure I keep it to like, I say 1 to 5 melodies, meaning different instruments. 1 to 5, basically 1 to 3, I would say. Keep it simple, you know, but also utilize what you have. Don't make it so simple that it's not enjoyable, but take those little things and just create with those limited instruments that you have. So this is the verse. I took a few things out and doesn't look like I added much. I did some actually I copied the automation of the loop over, so that way I have movement inside the verse. So I'm gonna play the whole verse and let you hear what I did. Now you can see the movement I was talking about earlier. As you can hear, the beat is just flowing really nice. You got the chords going here in the first part, because I take out a lot of the main melodies, like the piano part. I break it down, and also I build it up in the second part of the verse. There's this gap right here, and those gaps actually build energy. You know, when you have a pause like that or a gap in certain instruments, it's like breathing, and naturally your listeners, like, they'll inhale and then go hard in the second part. Like the second part of verse, they'll just start with a whole different flow, or just feel the energy building within the beat, and naturally they'll rap harder, or rap a different cadence, or sing harder, or just, you know, come up with a whole nother counter melody with their vocals, whatever. Like, have movement in your beats. I can't stress that enough. Because I hear beats that are just same the whole way through, and nobody, I mean, it may be good first couple 30 seconds or a minute, but after a while, if you don't have a really good artist on it, you know, it's just a beat and just a loop. So as you can hear, all the movement, this is probably the reason why, you know, this beat is doing so well, selling as well, because all the movement. So something else stood out to me. I introduced a new sound in the second part of the verse. So sometimes you can introduce new sounds that are kind of in the background. You can. It doesn't really mean that you can't or you have to, but in this particular instance, it worked. So check it out. I have a gap here and a gap right before the chorus. So that's an easy way of doing like a breakdown. You can always have like some type of riser or whatever, or some type of vocal effect into the chorus, or some type of, you know, halftime or whatever, whatever you want to use right before it. The gap is taking out sound, especially the hi-hat, is pretty traditional. So and I think I did it twice. See, gap here before the second half of the verse, and another gap here before the ending of the chorus, and I did a fade out, master volume fade here. So and the other thing I was going to tell you, after that verse, right into the next chorus, a lot of times I change my other verse. Like with the beat, I like to keep my listener glued. Like, I like to entice my listener, take them on a journey. I mean, just do things that people never hear sometimes. So it's a risky thing to do, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it. So I like to actually, most of the time, I change my verse, and I'll change the instruments around and switch up different percussion or whatever. And also, sometimes I do different breakdowns. Like the last breakdown, I'll do something totally different than the other ones. So that's just my little thing that I do. You can use that as well. You know, the sky's the limit. Just everyone does things differently. And sometimes I do huge surprises at the end of my beats. I know Timberland used to do that, but and sometimes I'll put something totally different inside the beat that no one will pay attention to but myself. So these are just little things I do, but you know, this beat probably is so successful because of the movement and also the vibe that it has, and it's mixed very well. I can't stress enough, mix your beats, you know, panning, getting the volumes right, you know, using different plugins. I use gross beat, reverb on that. Pretty much every sound I use is EQ'd, so that way it gives space, like this clap right here. Let me hit play. Solo. Clap should come up again. There we go. See, I cut all the lows out, so that way that kick and the sub will come right through. So little things like that. Like all those little things that you do to each sound. Even stereo separation, making the sound wider. The harp I made wider. The pad I made wider. But I also used EQ in connection with that. So like little things like that definitely take your beat a long way, and paying attention to the little things makes your beat just that much more fire, that much more complex and professional. So this beat actually and when you're done, you know, my intention with my beats, sometimes I go back and forth. I don't initially say, hey, I'm going to make this type of beat. This one actually I just started creating, and I started picturing what artists would sound good on it. So you know, I would think like, yo, whose voice would sound good on it? Sometimes it's the other way around. You're like, yo, I'm gonna make this type of beat, but sometimes, you know, when you have that intention, it doesn't come out that way. It'll come out as some other artist. And another way that you can probe, like find ways to figure out who would sound good on it, is just ask them. Ask your audience. You know, you see it all the time. You see other producers ask producers, yo, who do you hear on this? So you can ask producers, you can ask artists. You know, it's a communication too, because you can thank them. You be like, yo, thank you, man, and send them a tag copy if it's an artist. Be like, here's a beat, thanks for naming it. I mean, thanks for letting me know. Whatever exchange, give them a coupon, whatever. You know, and then, you know, name that beat and put it on your beat site, your beat store. You know, use the name they gave you, like whatever type beat. This one was I think Youngboy, NBA Youngboy type beat. And this one actually, I kept listening to his different music, trying to figure out who's gonna fit it, and that's who I thought would sound kind of cool on this beat. It's a little more musical than his style. Well, I don't know. He had some musical beats. I think he's still trying to find himself musically. But you know, this beat actually is one of the hottest right now that you know, my audience is gravitating to. So there's a little breakdown of every instrument. I think I didn't break down the drums for you. Let me just break down the drums for you right quick. And we're just gonna loop that part. And we're gonna just solo the drums here. Got the kick, snare, pad, lead, piano, clap, hi-hat, shaker. We'll leave the 808 in. Crash, the hi-hat open. Plucks, no. Insert, nope. And we'll leave the drum group. And you hear how wide everything sounds? Like, that's what panning, you know, panning definitely helps. Sometimes certain sounds could use some reverb. So I don't know if I use reverb on any of the drums. I did, the snare, just to kind of give it its own space and just make it sound a little more fuller. And notice how everything's just leveled perfectly. And notice how the kick cuts right through. You know, I obviously used side chaining to cut right through. And notice how the hi-hats, you know, I got that pan left, this hi-hat open. Actually, I didn't even use EQ on that. Probably felt like at the time I didn't need it. And once I got all the levels straight and the panning straight, you know, you can always send it right to a drum group and use effects right on top of it. And you didn't know, now you know. Sausage fattener is really good for making drums stand out more. And sound goodizer too, that's a really good one. It's a compression plugin that can bring out just more in your drums. Basically, it affects the dynamic range, but that also creates more tension. It's like squishing something in a can that doesn't fit, but it wants to get out. So it gives it that power. But use it tastefully, because it can cause distortion and just make your drum sound crazy. But if you're looking for that, you know, you can always do that. Sound Goodizer is the free one that comes with FL Studio, so I highly recommend using that and just messing around with settings with that. So you can, on top of mixing your drums separately, you know, and then you listen to it with everything else and see how it sounds. So there you go, you get the idea. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned something. just had to break down the beat for you that you know, I thought you guys could learn from. And hopefully, you know, the chords and stuff, the stamp tool, use that. You know, remember to have movement in your beat, have breakdowns, just make your beat move. Don't have just one thing playing all the time. And, you know, having a decent sized intro help you get right into the beat. And what else? Try different things. You know, don't always just do what everyone else is doing, because, you know, you are unique, and the more different things that you try, you might stumble across something that's just totally great and only you know about it, and, you know, and it's successful for you. But, you know, you using these techniques, it's automatically special because you do things differently. Everyone does something differently because we're all unique producers and unique human beings. So anyway, it's DJ Fanatic Beats, content contributor for LiveOffBeats.com. Again, if you like to follow me, you can follow me on DJ Fanatic Beats on Instagram, or Sounds for Producers on Instagram as well. Keep making dope music. Peace.